So, on this channel, I don't normally talk about Fairy Tail, and when I do, it's not very often. But as of recently, I have been getting into Fairy Tail once again, mainly due to the new anime series that is airing of the Fairy Tail anime, as well as me reading the current chapters of the Fairy Tail Century Quest manga. I decided to kind of look back at one of my favorite characters in all Fairy Tail, being Zeref Dragneel. Now, obviously, Zeref didn't really get the full-on great treatment he deserved by the end, but I do believe that Zeref is probably one of the strongest characters in Fairy Tail, as well as one of the most developed. And today we're going to be talking about Zeref's overall strength within the Fairy Tail manga, and what exactly he is capable of, and who he's stronger than and etc. So it's going to be mainly a power scaling video of me power scaling Zeref to my best of my ability. So one thing I do want to say before we continue on forward, if you did not see the disclaimer in the very beginning of the video, which I don't know how you'd be able to miss that, but pretty much there will be spoilers in this video. So if you happen to be only an anime, only, do not watch this video, because this will contain spoilers from the final arc of Fairy Tail, being the Alvarez War. Now, let's continue on. So, Zeref Dragneel is very, very powerful. I strongly do believe that Zeref is by far the strongest person in the entirety of the Fairy Tail series, with the exception of characters who happen to be dragons, such as Acnologia, Igneel, probably. I'm not really sure about the other dragons, because it wasn't really ever specified whether or not the other dragons who happen to train the other dragon slayers were just as strong as Igneel, though, in my personal opinion, I think that they're probably weaker than him, but I don't think it's by a significant degree. Now, it's also possible that the dragons that have been stated to be introduced as of recently, such as Mechrophobia, could potentially be stronger than Zeref as well, but we do not really know, due to the fact that we haven't really met many of the dragons, and the ones that we've met, like Mechrophobia, we haven't really seen much of. There's only been statements made about them. Now, another thing that I do have to make and say very clear, because I'm pretty sure someone's going to bring it up in the comment section, and that is, yes, Zeref was beaten at the very end of the story due to plot, but because of that, there is some type of way you could make it makes sense, and I'm going to try to explain the way how Zeref was defeated and why it makes sense to the best of my ability. So yeah, we have to kind of do that for this power scaling video. Now, for the most part, this video should be relatively accurate. I'm trying to be unbiased as I possibly can, but if you do disagree with me, or if I do make a mistake, just comment down below and then we can talk about it in the chat, or if you want to talk to me in my Discord about it, we can do that there too. So let's continue on with the main purpose of this video. So, unfortunately, we do not have that many statements. Well, we have a lot of statements about Zeref, but we don't have really that many battles with Zeref in the entirety of the story. If I'm not mistaken, Zeref has really only had like 3 legitimate fights in the entirety of Fairy Tail. One with Old Tear, or Tear, whatever you want to say, depending on her pronunciation of her name. And both fights with Natsu. Now, I'm not even going to focus on the fight that he had with Tear, because we know that Zeref at that point was weakened considerably, due to the fact that he was slumbering for a very long time. So we're going to be mainly focusing on both of his fights with Natsu, mainly the final one, because we actually get to see the full-on capabilities of Zeref. Now, one thing that I do feel like a lot of people tend to forget when it comes to Zeref is the fact that he is the Black Mage, he is the Mage of Legend, and he is one of the strongest characters in the entirety of the story. Now, because of this, since Zeref happens to be an immortal who is cursed with the curse of I can't even pronounce the name, so I'm just going to say he has the curse of immortality for the sake of this video, because I'm not trying to pronounce that every single time. But since Zeref is cursed with immortality, because of his curse, whenever he happens to feel like a very strong emotion, such as love, his curse tends to activate and kills everything around him. Obviously, some types of magic have been shown to be able to resist this, such as Natsu's Scarf, which happens to be made from the scales of Igneel. Now, I'm not really sure if Igneel is just a special exception due to how powerful he is, or if all dragon scales are capable of resisting this, which would kind of make sense due to how terrified Zeref actually is of Acnologia, and he flat out has admitted, as well as other people have admitted, that Acnologia would defeat Zeref in a fight. That's just fact. There isn't really anything to debate that. But Zeref, most of his magic that he uses are like one-hit kills. So, for example, if someone like, well, okay, I don't want to use a Dragon Slayer as an example, but let's say someone like Urza came across Zeref. Now, Urza happens to be a very skilled combatant. She is very strong, and I feel like a lot of people, because of the whole meme, because she's Urza thing, a lot of people tend to underline Urza's power, but Urza is very strong. I might make a video in the future talking about how strong Urza is, depending on how this one does. But Zeref, because of how hacked his magic is, his magic would most likely be able to defeat Urza just due to the fact that it is meant to kill people. And someone like Urza most likely wouldn't be able to resist it, unless it's like the freaking ridiculously overpowered Nakagami armor. And even then, she'd probably still lose to Zeref. Now, Zeref is also very, very intelligent. This comes from many different things. As a child, he's been showcased that he is very, very smart. He's a genius. He's one of the smartest people in the series, if not the smartest person in the entirety of the fairy tale story. And he is over 400 years old, and because of this, he has multiple different types of magic under his belt. Now, one thing I do want to bring up, though, when it comes to talking about all the magics that Zeref has under his belt, even though there are only a handful of magics listed that he is capable of using because he's showcased to do it, it's most likely that Zeref probably knows a lot more magic than just those type of ones. It's just the ones that you see him use in his fights happen to be the most effective. For example, his death/black magic is really effective because, like I said before, if you happen to not be a dragon or potentially even a dragon slayer, the death magic is most likely going to take you out with one hit. So it makes sense that Zeref would rely on that most of the time. Now, a handful of the magics that we do know that Zeref is capable of doing is fire magic. He obviously is capable of manipulating time, which I'm going to get into that a little bit more later on in this video. He uses his death magic quite a bit. We also do know that he is capable of using law. Now, I'm assuming that he's only able to use law as, like, I guess, a quote-unquote fairy type of magic, because we do know that you can assume that Mavis, I believe, was the one who created both the alternate version, which is Fairy Law, the completed version, as well as, you know, Fairy Sphere and also Fairy Glitter. So Zeref probably doesn't have access to those, but we do know that he is able to use Law since he taught that to Mavis, which is what caused Mavis to end up becoming immortal anyways and having the same curse as him. I'm not sure if I said this before, but he has fire magic, and you can assume that just like other people, he probably is capable of using other elemental types of magic. So I wouldn't be surprised if Zeref had, you know, mastery, at least the basics of stuff like lightning magic, water magic, or even earth magic, but this is not really confirmed. Now, going to the time element of Zeref, Zeref in his base form, when he's known as the Black Mage, has only showcased that he's able to move through time freely, as well as, you know, resist time-based abilities. And we also do know that this version of Zeref is able to stop time, which he has showcased that he was able to do when he had his conversation with Natsu during the events of the Tartarus arc. We never really get to see the full-on capabilities of what he's capable of doing with that version of Time Stop because, like I said before, I believe that's the only time we get to see Zeref do something like that. But I would imagine that he probably does have a bunch of, you know, time-based techniques besides the ones that he does show. Now, we do know for a fact that Zeref does have a lot more when he is in his Fairy Heart White Mage mode, but I'll get into that a little bit later in this video. Now, one thing I do also want to bring up, that one thing about Zeref having time magic that I always thought was very interesting is his connection to Demaria. Now, we do know that Zeref, for an unspecified amount of time, was away from the Alvarez Kingdom, and we don't really know exactly when all of the 12 Spriggans have been, you know, made, when exactly that became a full-fledged group, but we do know that apparently God Serena happened to join the Spriggans relatively recently, and it's even been theorized that God Serena only got his dragon Lacrima implanted in his body, probably by someone like Irene. But Zeref was able to actually turn someone like Irene physically back to a human. Obviously, it's more from a physical standpoint, just, you know, appearance-wise, deep down, she's actually still a dragon, but he was able to figure out something that she wasn't able to do. Just as we do know that Zeref did teach someone like August. So I do think it's very well possible that the magic that we get to see Demaria use with her time god form, as well as her being able to stop time and all that crazy stuff, most likely was taught to her by Zeref, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of other members who happen to be part of the Spriggans, for example, Nineheart, who is capable of, kind of summoning false illusions of people of the dead, as well as, other characters who happen to be part of the Spriggans, like Bradman or Bloodman, depending on his translation of his name, who is able to use all the powers of the demons from the Book of Zeref. They probably all got their magic from Zeref in some type of way, or at least most of them have. That's just mainly speculation. That isn't concrete proof, but you can probably assume so. So it is possible that Zeref might have all those magics as well, since he was able to create those things. Now, another thing that we should probably talk about when it comes to scaling Zeref is the fact that Zeref has been showcased that he is able to create demons. Now, we don't really know how this can be applicable to combat. We do know, obviously, the demons that are within the Book of Zeref can be released by him at any point that he wants, but we do not really know how exactly, if Zeref is able to full-on control them and manipulating them in his own free will. Like, can he take someone like Mardgeir, release him from the Book of Zeref, and just manipulate him and force him to do whatever he wants? Or is it that they have their own free will and they're able to do whatever the hell they choose? Even if that includes, like, going against Zeref, we're not really sure when it comes to that respect. Because we do know that all the demons have the innate will to want to kill Zeref, but we're not really sure if it's just, like, all the time you'd want to kill Zeref, or it's just, like, after we get what we have done, you're going to come and try to kill me, because that's, like, how END reacted, and we even know that's how Mardgeir was kind of like as well. So, yeah, now, going along with that, we don't really know the details of how long it takes in order to create demons from the Book of Zeref. Like, him making a demon and then putting it into his book, if that takes a whole lot of time. It's kind of implied that it would, based off of how he talks about Larricade as well as END. But we do know that those two demons are both stronger than your average demon, or Aetherius demons. So it is possible that maybe it just took longer because they're a lot stronger. I would assume that Zeref probably could just conjure up, like, random, like, weaker demons, sort of like how a necromancer would be when they conjure up, like, the living souls of the dead, but we do not really know whether or not he can do that for a fact. But him being able to someone like Deliora, originally, obviously he can't do that anymore because Deliora is destroyed, but him being able to summon someone like Jackal or Deliora or Mardgeir realistically does make a lot of sense to me, but we're not going to really add that in necessarily if we put them in, like, a versus battle, because obviously all those characters are dead, with the exception of Mardgeir, who happens to be still in the book, though I imagine, does the book disappear when Zeref dies? I'm not really sure, but whatever. Now, Zeref, when he is in his fairy heart form, or his white mage form, or actually, before we get into that, we should probably talk about Zeref's combat. Now, Zeref, at this point in time, it seems like the biggest hindrance that he really does have is the fact that he happens to be bipolar, emotionally insane. Because you have where Zeref constantly is kind of, fighting against this other personality of his that kind of wants to end humanity, whereas Zeref innately is a very kind individual. Obviously, he's not like a super good person, but he's more on the lines almost like an anti-hero or an anti-villain when he is in his ordinary state of mind, when he is sane. But when you have where he goes into this other version of himself, this other personality, all he really craves is battle, and he just kind of wants the death to everyone. And when you see this version of Zeref fighting against Natsu, you can clearly tell that him and Natsu are relatively equal when it comes to their strength. And if not, Zeref has the edge. Because you actually look at this fight, Zeref is taking damage from Natsu as well as healing at the same exact time. And Natsu's just kind of getting worn out and is constantly becoming weaker and weaker as the fight progresses. And even when Natsu goes into his Dragon Force, whether this was induced from just overall rage or he's just able to go into it on his own free will, which I feel like at this point in time Natsu should be able to go in and out of it whenever he wants, especially if someone like Wendy is able to do it. I feel like realistic, well, okay, I don't want that to sound like I'm downplaying Wendy, because Wendy is very powerful, but like, I feel like if Wendy could do it, I'm pretty sure Natsu, training for a year, should be able to learn how to do it as well. But I digress. Natsu, fighting Zeref at this point in time, it's kind of implied that Zeref he seemed very confident that he can beat Natsu in that state before, Mavis obviously intervened, but we do not really know. So I'm just going to say, for the sake of that, Natsu and Zeref, when Natsu is in Dragon Force, most likely is either equal or slightly below Zeref when it comes to his power, which kind of does give a very good scale on how strong Zeref is at that point in time, before absorbing Fairy Heart. Now, when Zeref does absorb Fairy Heart, though, his overall power just jumps ridiculously. Now, we do not really know 100%. Like, it's never stated that Zeref becomes extremely more powerful when he has Fairy Heart, though it's implied just due to how easily he dealt with Natsu, as well as the overall abilities that he ends up, obtaining. Because the only reason why I bring this up is because, realistically, Zeref, at this point in time, I know a lot of people are probably going to get mad when I say this, but even this version of Zeref most likely would not be able to beat the Acnologia that we get to see fight Igneal, or have the encounter with Jalal, or even take out the entire Fairy Tail Guild back on Tenro Island. And the only reason for this is just due to the fact that Acnologia is really hacks. He's able to resist as well as eat all forms of magic, so Zeref having infinite magic really shouldn't change that. And even if you look at the way how Zeref talks immediately after gaining Fairy Heart, he isn't trying to engage Acnologia in a full-fledged battle. All he's trying to do is just simply rewrite time, which kind of goes into some of the abilities that we should talk about that Zeref has when he ends up gaining the Fairy Heart ability. So within this state, Zeref is capable of activating the spell that will, open the gate towards the Neo Eclipse, where he's able to rewrite all of time. Now, with this, and the fact that he has time-based abilities, allows for Zeref to become a master of time, essentially. He's able to reverse time, which is what we see when Natsu uses like his Dragon Force, Fire Punch on him, his Iron Fist or whatever. You have where Zeref is completely dispersed. He either rewrites time or reverses it in some type of way. You see that all the damage that Natsu managed to cause to the guild is reversed and fixed back, and Zeref is able to bring his body back together. And you even have where Natsu just kind of like everything that is did, just it's gone now. And Zeref's just like, oh, this is the power of Fairy Heart, and then he just one-shots Natsu. So the fact that Zeref's able to one-shot someone like Natsu, who was originally kind of giving him trouble, does showcase that he is definitely extremely more powerful than he was before. Now, one thing I do want to bring up about Natsu, though, is it's not really clear whether or not the Natsu... Well, okay, I'll get into that a little bit more, I guess more in detail, but I personally believe that the Blaze Dragon King mode version of Natsu, which is utilizing the Flames of Igneal, by the way, that we see fight Zeref in their first altercation, is definitely stronger than the Natsu that we actually see fight Zeref when he's utilizing Dragon Force. Now, obviously, the second version of Natsu utilizing, Dragon Force is injured, as well as Dragon Force I doubt is as strong as the Flames of actually Igneal himself. And even if you look at the fight, Natsu's just kind of bullying Zeref in their first altercation, just due to the fact that he's utilizing the Flames of Igneal, and Zeref actually looks kind of scared that, yeah, Natsu might actually kill me. You have where Zeref, after when he's fighting Natsu, when Natsu's using Dragon Force, he doesn't really feel the same way. And yeah, so, I mean, Natsu getting up immediately after this, after he quote-unquote gets killed by Zeref due to Lucy rewriting the Book of E&D, I do think it's very well possible that that Natsu might have gotten a boost to his overall strength that is akin to, I guess, sort of a Zenkai boost in Dragon Ball. And I've even speculated about this before, where I felt like, due to the fact that Natsu didn't really seem confident in fighting Zeref before he even unleashed the Igneal's flames, it's possible that the power that we actually get to see Natsu showcase when he first goes into E&D and is fighting against, Gray, and then eventually ends up calming down, it's possible that Natsu's base power got up to that point every single time he went into the E&D transformation, so it was like he was retaining some of E&D's power within himself, which has allowed him to get stronger. And I think Natsu dying by the hands of Zeref and getting rewritten by Lucy probably did give him another amp as well, at least enough to be able to defeat his opponent at that point in time. Because you have where Zeref even brings up when Natsu clashes with them that Natsu's flames are able to burn through time. So I'm not really sure how the hell that even works, just like how Act and Logia manages to eat time, like I don't know how the hell that works, but Natsu's strength definitely got an increase when he came back to life, even though it was plot induced, like I said at the very beginning of this video. And then you have where Zeref is defeated by Natsu. Now, one thing I should probably specify when it comes to Zeref's immortality is that Zeref, he can't be killed. Like, even Act and Logia can't kill Zeref, and Zeref even admits it. It's just kind of like the thing that makes me terrified about Act and Logia is that he's stronger than me, and he still can't kill me. So no matter how long, like, even, like, if Act and Logia manages to wipe out all of humanity, me and you, like, he's addressing Mavis when he's talking about it, he's like, we will still roam this earth, still alive, constantly being pestered and defeated and tortured by Act and Logia over and over again, and that's what he's scared of. He's more scared of being, you know, just ripped apart by Act and Logia constantly for the rest of, you know, eternity than actually being killed by him, because Act and Logia can't kill him since he's immortal. The only thing that can kill Zeref is if someone cancels out his own immortality by, like, either going back in time or someone else with the same curse as him, which is what happened with him and Mavis. So, yeah, Zeref Dragneel, strongest character in the series aside from dragons, like I said before, though it is, like, Zeref is the strongest human character in the story. I think most people would agree with that. Natsu, with all the powers of, you know, all the Dragon Slayers or whatever, might be above that. I'm not really sure. Probably. But aside from that, when it comes to just pure power, Zeref is by far the strongest human character in the story. He's very, very powerful. And even if you used him in versus battles, Zeref is probably one of the strongest, like, shonen antagonists out there. He's not the strongest one, obviously, but he's up there. Like, I think he would probably be in a top 10 list if you're just using, like, one shonen protagonist per series. So, like, you'll have, like, a whole list of, like, Dragon Ball protagonists. But, like, you know, comparing Zeref to, like, people like, you know, Aizen or Madara or whatever, like, I don't think he's as strong as them, but I feel like he's not super far off. That's all I'm saying. So, anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys want to see more power scaling videos of characters within Fairy Tail, just, you know, comment down below. I'm probably gonna do, like, a versus battle for Tokyo Ghoul tomorrow, or analysis or something. I haven't really decided yet, but yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching. Remember to comment, subscribe as always, guys. Love you all. Jalen Hawk signing out.